point one, which one is going to give you a bit of room and which one probably isn't, and which one is your teammate and which one isn't. So you don't make that kind of move. If you're sitting on the pit wall, if you're Christian Horner or Helmut Marko, if you're sitting on the pit wall, you do not want either of your drivers to take on marginal moves in that way, while you might actually like them to when they're trying to gain a place against a rival. And that's the thing that, you know, having worked in teams, you realise, don't mess with each other, for goodness sake. And I know Christian was very upset afterwards and said that, but whatever on the radio, and we perhaps don't know everything that he said, didn't have the effect of stopping them doing it, did it?
No, it didn't. And if you're going to have two number ones, let them race. We all totally condone that, and that is the way to go.
Of course.
But does that mean the engineers then have to get behind their drivers in such a way that you egg the driver on against the other in a way that isn't for the best advantage of the team? And I think there's no problem with the drivers racing, but the umbrella should take the overall picture into account. Not what we saw in Baku, in the way the engineer was talking to Daniel. Last place, Sergei Sirotkin. I think it was unforgivable that he apologised for running into the back of Sergio Perez, which he got penalised quite heavily for, and nor was it mentioned in the Williams press release afterwards. It was just completely sidestepped, and I think that's wrong. We see teams congratulating other teams when they win or things going on. You run in the back of another driver and it's your fault. You admit to it. Actually, you're a ex-communications director, probably still are, a very good one. What's your take on that?
I mean, it's not really for me to take issue with Williams's comms strategies in that area, but what I would say is that there's often an opportunity, which is to say, hey guys, hands up, my bad. Yeah. And in terms of actual, you know, turning a negative into a positive from a comms point of view or a media management, that's often a good thing to do, and they didn't do that.
Baku, as we said last week, is unique amongst street circuits in that its long straight engenders less than maximum downforce, and the wind that blows off the water thus makes the cars much less stable than normal. Craig Scarborough has more on the setup used last weekend on the race-winning Mercedes W09. Well, Craig, Baku is fascinating because it has this long straight and because it therefore obliges the teams to come up with less downforce for a street circuit. It's an anomaly. So talk us through how Mercedes approached it with that rear wing.
OK, so all of the teams changed their rear wings. Everyone ran a skinny wing, and Mercedes, you can see here, is very much the same. So if we bring the wing in, and you can see, standard wing, you have lots of angle of attack, you have quite a deep length for the wing. And the problem is this creates downforce, but it also creates drag. And you can see here the spirals coming off the wing. This is the induced drag. This is what we see as vapour trails on a damp day. And this slows the cars down on the straight. So if we just move the video on just very slightly, you see the shape change. And what they've then done is they've created what some people call the spoon shape or a tapered shaped wing. And this makes the outer portions of the wings much shorter in length and much shallower in angle, which means vortices that are created, these wingtip vortices, are reduced massively. So you get a lot less downforce because of the shape of the wing, but also a lot less drag, which allows them obviously to push then along the straights to get that maximum speed, which is obviously so critical at somewhere like Baku.
And that's one of the reasons, of course, that the cars are so tiptoey and edgy, under braking particularly, and it's so difficult to get the tyre temperatures right in Baku. And yet there's something else as well on the rear wing they were trying.
Yeah, everyone changed their rear wings, but Mercedes have tried a trick that we've seen a few times before. Normally, the airflow underneath the wing will be what they call laminar, so it's nice, even airflow. But at some point, it will start to break up as it goes flap, and it starts to try and separate away from the surface of the wing, and you get this breakup of the airflow. And this happens all of the times, but at certain wing angles and at certain setups, you find is that this airflow will break up prematurely, and this will both ruin the downforce of the wing, but also add lots of drag, which clearly you don't want. So Mercedes have revived an old trick, which is we call it a zigzag strip in Formula One. It actually comes from aircraft and particularly gliders, and it's called a turbulator. So it's a little zigzag strip. You can actually buy this as rolls of to the underside of the wing. And what this does is when you see here the zigzags underneath the rear wing of the Mercedes, this creates micro vortices that just helps that stay attached at the steepest part of the wing, and then you get this lovely laminar airflow, as you see on the image with the coloured arrows there.
Now, Scars, we're going to put you on the spot here a little bit, but just move related to the Baku Grand Prix and the number of drivers that said after they had an incident, oh, I couldn't see him. Obviously, Brendan Hartley kind of had that moment with Pierre Gasly couldn't really see what was going on. Then we had Alonso passing Stroll and Lance saying he didn't really see it very well. Obviously, Ocon and Kimi Raikkonen, and most memorably, Baku Grand Prix, and the number of drivers that said after they had an incident, oh, I couldn't see him. Obviously, Brendan Hartley kind of had that moment with Pierre Gasly, partly because he couldn't really see what was going on. Then we had Alonso passing Stroll and Lance saying he didn't really see it very well. Obviously, Ocon and Kimi Raikkonen, and most memorably, Pierre Gasly coming up on Kevin Magnussen at the restart, and Kevin basically squeezing him, and they touched at 300 kilometres an hour. And again, Kevin saying, in his case, in mitigation, the car had so much vibration after the shunt with Marcus Ericsson at the start that he couldn't see anything out of the mirrors anyway. My question to you is, should we be looking at this problem generically? The mirror problem in Formula One is getting worse, not better. We have the halo. There is talk about putting mirrors in the halo. But there's a better solution, surely, a cleaner solution than just putting a mirror there. And we've seen it in WEC.
Yeah, so we rely on reflective mirrors, and they're limited in the size that you're allowed to have. They're limited in the position, and obviously they're quite poorly supported, whether you attach them to the halo or the bodywork. And with all these flat spots in Baku, you could see Magnussen's mirrors. But why have mirrors at all? You know, nowadays it's not necessary. The technology is there. And as you say, in WEC you have these. Gentex make a kit. Rear-facing camera and a little display in the cockpit that gives you a full rear view from the car. So there's no blind spots. You get the wide view, you get the narrow view, and that would be perfect. You could imagine it up on the top of the halo, a rear view mirror, much like we have in our road cars, but being a digital one, and just have a mounted on the roll hoop like the current TV camera. Probably better to have one down in the rear impact structure,
down in the bottom
looking directly behind.
Assuming Sergei Sorokin isn't the second corner.
OK, maybe spaced back a little bit for potential for damage. But we've seen onboard cameras, in Formula E, for example, have one in the rear crash structure. Gives you a perfect view of what's behind you. It would be useful for the driver.
But going back to the problem, though, when Magnussen obviously has a problem seeing out, isn't there something that Formula One should get hold of right now and saying this is a dangerous situation, to be driving a car where you can't actually see anything out of the mirrors? I mean, that is pretty dangerous on virtually every type of circuit on which we go now, but there doesn't seem to be of that.
It's difficult because I think a lot of the vibrations we saw were due to, firstly, the high speed and the bumps, and then we say from the flat spots on the see some of the onboards were shaking the cars around really violently. So I don't know if there's anything from an engineering point of view that they can do that they haven't already done.
Should the onus be on the teams to report you to the FIA and be fined if they don't? Or equally, the teams are never going to do it anyway because they want to finish the race, don't they, at all costs? It's a difficult one.
It's difficult, and I don't think...
How did the FIA police it?
I don't think the lead should come from the teams because the teams, it may not be in their interest. It may be a work that they don't want to do that can be in other areas of the car. But certainly it's a factor that the FIA maybe need to go and have a review of, along with lots of other things, relatively safety related. And I think there are ways that they could watch this. So it would be a good time for them to have a review.
Now, let's get down to the big issues from the Azerbaijan Grand Prix and lots more besides. A warm welcome again to Matt Bishop and to Alan Goud, Director of the British Touring Car Championship, former President of the Motorsports Association here in the UK and a member of the FIA World Council. Well, Alan, being a BTCC man, I guess you felt quite at home watching Baku when you got back from Donington last night. A similar sort of race.
It was like one of our races without a roof. Look, I heard it was a great race, and I got home from Donington last night and watched it, and it was a good race. But honestly, I see that every weekend at the BTCC.
Well, speaking as a promoter, how do you define a good race? Does it have to have lots of crashes and accidents and
no, not even crashes.
Red Bull type stuff?
No, it just has to have a lot of drama.
Right.
A predictable race, anyone can watch that, and it goes. It's not just motor racing; it's horse racing, it's whatever.